Don't touch that remote control because you're on the show that you've been wanting to see. It's Marijuana, Compassion and Common Sense, the show that tells you the truth about marijuana, the facts about medical marijuana, and gives you information on the politics and the legal issues surrounding marijuana so you can learn how you can access this incredible herb that could be of such benefit to you, your health, and for medical reasons. Good evening. My name's Lanny Swerdlow, and I'm director of the Marijuana Anti-Prohibition Project. We are a patient support group and a law reform organization located in the Inland Empire. We have 2 meetings every month. We have a meeting on the first Sunday of every month at 3 p.m. at the Cathedral City Public Library. And in the High Desert, we have a meeting on the second Wednesday of every month at 7:30 p.m. at the Joshua Tree Community Center. We'll give you a little more information about those meetings and where they are later on in the show. For now, though, we want to tell you about marijuana. That's why you're watching the show. I want to mention something to you that recently happened. It was about a month ago. The FDA, for some reason, suddenly rushed through this report saying that marijuana has no medical uses. Apparently, a number of members of Congress have been kind of bombarding the FDA saying, you've got to back us up more. You know, we don't want people to think that this is really medicine. And so the FDA came out with their usual nonsense that there's no scientific literature at all that backs up the medical use of marijuana, ignoring, of course, their own National Institute of National Institute of Medicine study in 1999, which published a paper that said, in fact, yes, marijuana definitely has medical uses, including smoked marijuana. So this was all politics as usual. And until we get members of Congress who have got some backbone to stand up to them, and until, unfortunately, we probably have another presidential administration than the George Bush administration, we're probably not going to get the FDA to change their tune. So stick with us, work with other local marijuana and drug law reform organizations, and we can bring about this needed change. But what's so interesting is here is the FDA saying no use, and we're going to bring you an interview now with Dr. Todd Mikuriya, a psychiatrist who used to work with he was director of the Drug Abuse Treatment Center at New Jersey Neuropsychiatric Institute, and he was then appointed, while he was there, director of the non-classified marijuana research for the National Institute of Mental Health of the National and Drug Abuse Studies. Now that's a federal agency, and he was director of the non-classified. I wonder what that means, non-classified versus classified. Like this is non-classified because it makes marijuana look bad, and this is classified because it makes marijuana look good. Who knows? But Dr. Mikuriya is a graduate of Reed College in California. He went to Temple University Medical School. He's worked in a slew of hospitals. It's a list this long. And like I said, he was director of the for the National Institute of Mental Health on the non-classified marijuana studies. He's a member of the California Medical Association, the American Psychiatric Association, American Society of Addiction Medicine. He's a member of the California Society of Addicted Medicine and the Alameda Contra Costa Medical Association, and he's a member of the Biofeedback Society and a whole host of other organizations. And Dr. Mikuriya was up at the Santa Barbara Conference on Cannabis Therapeutics. He presented a paper there. He is a long-time supporter of the medicinal use of cannabis. So here's our interview with Dr. Todd Mikuriya. Tell us a little bit of the story, how you got involved, because I think it's fascinating.
Once upon a time, I was struck by an inappropriate attack of curiosity when I was a sophomore in medical school. I came across an unassigned chapter in the pharmacology textbook Goodman and Gilman, a standard reference, and was fascinated by a 9-page chapter about cannabis. and learned that it had significant medical usage before, for some reason, it was taken away in about 1940. And that peak of curiosity launched me on a career. And this was back in 1959.
And you've been on that path ever since?
Yes, I have. I insinuated my way into the National Institute of Mental Health, where I was put in charge of the first overground cannabis research program in 1967. And at that time discovered that there was a concurrent secret study going on run by the Army and the military intelligence at Edgewood Arsenal in Maryland.
What was this secret study?
Studying the congeners of cannabis for possible incapacitation purposes, but then later they discovered as a side effect that it was very effective in the treatment of epilepsy, and helped the director of this program get it declassified. But then this information was unfortunately deep-sixed, and to this day, it's really not known in mainstream medicine.
Now, you work for NIDA, you said?
No, the precursor, the National Institute of Mental Health, Center for Narcotics and Drug Addiction Studies.
And were you involved in medical marijuana research at that time, or?
I could only do it from a bibliographic perspective, and laid out the proposed funding for the research, which never got done because they were more interested in the possible political significance of cannabis as connected with anti-war protests. You have to understand the spirit of the times. The federal government was up to its ass in criminality and a giant scam that killed a lot of people in Vietnam. And this was when the public protests were getting more and more pervasive and larger. And part of this, there was cannabis use.
That's something that I've talked about, that cannabis was partly responsible for the response opposing the Vietnam War. It does something to people that makes them more,
It encourages critical thinking.
There you go.
It's almost like my first epiphany when I read the book and said, geez, I don't know why it's so illegal. It doesn't make any sense. And it didn't.
So what triggered you to get really involved in the movement to get it mainstream medicine?
Curiosity, and also a sense of justice and appropriate medical practice, because it turns out that cannabis is far less dangerous than most any other medication you can think of, especially when dealing with chronic conditions. Mm-hmm. And that cannabis should be looked upon as a first line of medication instead of it being something that you try after you give up on all the conventional treatments.
Right. Yeah.
And especially in the area of mental health, because as a psychiatrist, I can attest to the very negative side effects of chronic use of antipsychotics and other specific psychotherapeutic drugs. All drugs. There is no free lunch. There are always effects and side effects.
The antipsychotics have some very serious, dangerous side effects, some of them do. But marijuana doesn't. Can marijuana treat as well as, let's say, Haldol, for example?
Absolutely. And cannabis could be used to treat a whole spectrum of psychiatric conditions, but because of the ignorance and bias, are not used. I'm presenting a paper at the International Cannabinoid Research Society taking place in Hungary this year of a young man who was suffering from insomnia and was inappropriately medicated with a series of so-called mainstream psychotropics, which caused him to become psychotic, suicidal, and so bad that he had to be hospitalized in locked facilities. He became a connoisseur of the locked facilities in the San Francisco Bay Area until his mother brought him to me as a last resort, and I prescribed Marinol because he had reported that cannabis itself helped him sleep. And so I said, well, why not? And so since he couldn't have the marijuana, I tried the Marinol, which worked very well, much to the consternation of the incompetent judge and social workers that had their clutches on him. This is a pervasive problem in American society of unqualified, ignorant, non-medical people dictating psychotropic prescriptions. You know, I don't know where these judges get the hubris that let them think that they can make these health decisions.
It seemed to me that they're practicing medicine without a license, and they should be hauled up before the law themselves.
Well, you see, that's the problem. Who do you complain to
Yeah.
when you're dealing with the hen house watching Fox? You can't really complain. What do you do with Bill Lockyer, that scum that has done a lot to block the implementation of the Compassionate Use Act of 1996? What do you do to these indwelling criminals under color of authority that continue to make the stupid and harmful decisions in prescribing medications?
You educate the public by telling them on TV shows like this, so they vote them out of office and get people in there who will understand what they're supposed to do.
Well, we need to have medical treatment turned over to medical personnel instead of allowing probation officers, judges, and prosecutors dictate what kinds of psychotropics. I'm going to mention this afternoon about a couple cases where a pharmacologic version of Franz Kafka was used to incapacitate a patient to prevent him from mounting a significant defense for his using cannabis.
You know, there was just a study that came out of USC on depression, and it kind of showed that marijuana users, whether they're recreation or medical, suffer from less depression than the general public who doesn't use marijuana. It almost sounds like marijuana is something you should, like calcium. It's something that you could almost use as a benefit, as something beneficial.
Well, it's not possible to make those kinds of wide generalizations because you run into the same difficulties that the corrupt pharmaceutical industry does with their shameless hawking of dangerous drugs, saying things that like it should be put in their drinking water. It's so benign and useful in preventing heart attacks. But to put any drug in that kind of position or make those kinds of statements is irresponsible and potentially very hurtful for people who do not react well to these medications, including marijuana.
Right. That was a very tactful way of telling me I'm way off base. Thank you. No, that's good because I can go on overboard sometimes. I feel it's beneficial that when I see these studies about depression and people who use it are less likely to be depressed. What about the study that Dr. Tashkin did, which showed that on lung cancer, people who...
Well, let me say this about that. It showed that Dr. Tashkin suffers from integrity, that after devoting a well-paid career to finding negative pulmonary effects of cannabis, he finally concluded that there were none.
Yeah.
And that takes cojones and integrity to make that kind of judgment.
Right. And the study said that people who smoke marijuana and only marijuana have a lower incidence of lung cancer than people who don't smoke anything. and indicating there might be a protective effect. It needs more study, but he indicates there could be a protective effect.
I believe so, because cannabis shows protective properties in other areas. I believe it should be like, for example, the first-line treatment for head injuries and strokes. I believe that a lot of nerve and brain damage could be prevented by timely application of cannabis, primarily in the inhaled vaporized form.
So, no doubt, you think one of the worst things that ever happened was when this country outlawed cannabis back in the 30s.
Well, the only group to oppose cannabis being taken off the market was the American Medical Association, when they had some political clout, and they predicted that someday cannabis may be found to be useful, and for that reason they should not take it off the market. And this has really come true in spades.
Well, Doctor, thank you very much for joining us on
pleasure.
Marijuana, Compassion, and Common Sense. Dr. Todd Mikuriya is one of the pillars and founders of the medical marijuana movement. It was an honor to have him on our show. And speaking of an honor to have on our show, our next person is a real honor. He is one of the original participants in the government program providing medical marijuana to medical patients. He has been smoking 10 joints a day for almost 30 years. Is this person whacked out? You judge for yourself. Here's Irv Rosenfeld. Is there marijuana in it?
Yeah.
Okay, that's great. We just open it up during the show while we're... Okay.
Yep.
Wow, I've never... That's really... That one's full. You've only taken one joint out of it? Is
Three. Took three.
Is that one of them right
No,
there? Oh,
no,
okay.
no.
This is good. All right, we'll
This
talk
has
about
been
that.
humidified. This has been humidified. See, these have been freeze-dried.
Uh-huh.
So the government tells you to take the cigarette and steam them to raise the moisture level, so it's not as harsh. I find the easiest thing is to take 60 of these and open them up and take the marijuana, put them in a baggie with about 8 to 10 pieces of lettuce for 8 to 10 hours. Then the lettuce rehydrates the cannabis. I take the lettuce out and then I roll what I need each day, which is what I'm smoking here and which is right here.
Nice. Oh, so you re-roll it.
I re-roll it, yeah.
With me is Irv Rosenfeld from Florida, Fort Lauderdale, Florida now, and he is part of the government program. Is it
Compassionate Care Protocol, investigational new drug.
Tell us about this program you're part of.
The program started in 1978 by Robert Randall, who was the first patient. In 1982, I became the second patient. What we were able to prove was that not that the federal government is saying that marijuana is a medicine, because they still don't. What we were able to prove is a qualified physician said that nothing else worked, and that qualified physician believed marijuana did. So with the Compassionate Care Protocol, the government wasn't saying it's a medicine, but we're going to let you have it. And so that's what I became under in 82. And then it got up to 13 patients up to 1992. And then the protocols, the Compassionate Care Protocol, normally can take a year, 2 years to put together. And in this case, we got a protocol together for AIDS patients that was full in the blank. And the AIDS organizations bombarded the federal government with thousands of protocols. George Bush Sr., running for president again, didn't want to look soft on drugs by giving drugs or marijuana to thousands of patients. Shut the program down.
Especially AIDS patients.
Yeah, especially AIDS patients. And so shut the program down. And so 13 of us were grandfathered in. Today there are 5 left in the country.
So, what is the reason that you smoke?
I have bone tumors throughout my body called multiple congenital cartilaginous exostosis and a variant of the syndrome pseudo-hypoparathyroidism, which means bone tumors on the ends of the most long bones of the body that can grow forever, causing, besides pain, muscle tension, problems with tearing muscles or hemorrhaging tearing veins, and also as far as anti-inflammatory, like the sac of fluid, the more that's inflamed, the higher rate of malignancy we have. So cannabis serves as a muscle relaxant, anti-inflammatory, for pain, and I haven't had a tumor grow or a new one develop in over 30 years, and I attribute that to the marijuana.
And you believe the marijuana has anti-cancer properties?
No, I believe marijuana has kept the tumors from growing. My tumors are benign tumors, unless they become malignant. And none have ever. They got close certain times and had surgery. But I don't believe cannabis has kept them from turning malignant. I believe it's kept them from growing, thereby possibly becoming malignant.
Yeah. Okay. I understand that. And so, without marijuana, your life would be...
My life would be pathetic. Okay, I would be very, very bad off if I was still alive. Physically, I probably would be in a chair. I don't know if I'd be able to hold down a job or not. It's the pain and all the problems and all the difficulties I'd be having. And I wouldn't be enjoying life the way I am now. I'm a very healthy person as far as I consider. I help teach disabled people to sail in Miami. I'm a stockbroker. I handle millions of dollars, and by the way, I'm a very, very good stockbroker.
Now, are you involved with any particular groups that...
This group right here, Patients Out of Time. I'm a director for the organization, and this organization, again, just cares about furthering the cause of medical cannabis. Try to teach people that this is just a medicine, and that it should be allowed to be prescribed by the doctors who go to school to become doctors in this country.
Now, you were part of Dr. Ethan Russo's study, weren't you?
Yes.
On long-term cannabis use. I talk about this study all the time on the show because it's so amazing study. Tell us a little bit about your involvement in that study.
Dr. Russo had the 4 of his patients out of Montana. Actually, 3 of us. They went to Iowa for the other patient. She was too sick to go to Montana. And they did brainwave testing, IQ testing, respiratory testing. They were trying to show what difficulties or any medical problems that's arisen from all long-term use of cannabis. And gee, we were all in good shape. So we were just proving again that, marijuana isn't the evil weed they make it out to be.
And with this, he was smoking a lot of marijuana for about 10, 15 years. You've been smoking 300 joints a month.
I've been smoking for 35 years. Okay, 22 and a half in the federal government. But 10 to 12 a day. 300 cigarettes about every 25 days, which is 11 ounces. Supplied. This is 11 ounces of pot supplied by the federal government, paid for by your tax money. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. I couldn't think of a better use for my tax money than providing you with your medicine. So what does that work out to in weight? I think you once said it works out to, you've smoked how much?
Oh, over 220 pounds.
Over 220 pounds, and you no worse the wear.
Not at all. In fact, I'm much better the wear.
Much better the wear. That's the amazing thing about marijuana. This is a living, breathing testimonial to the medicinal and health benefits of marijuana. Irv, thank you very much for joining us here on Marijuana, Compassion, and Common Sense.
Thank you.
Thank you for everything you've done and for what you're going to be doing and for being the shining example of the benefits of cannabis.
Keep up the good work yourself.
Thank you.
All right.
As you can see, 10 joints a day for 30 years hasn't hurt this person at all. In fact, it's been very beneficial. And speaking about beneficial, here's one of the most beneficial parts of our entire show. Here's Red's Corner.
Welcome to Red's Corner. On my left here is Red Tuff, the director of the High Desert chapter of MAP. And how you doing, Red?
I'm fine. And I'm the facilitator of the High Desert MAP, just to get titles right. MAP's been going on now for most of this decade. And I only came in the middle. A really good friend of mine sent me an email with a URL to a website. And if you haven't been to this website, it'll be shown at the end of the program. You should go. Well, that's because of that website I started going to the meetings. I mean, I drive 40 miles to get to the meeting, but it's worth it.
As do I. I've been with MAP since pretty much the beginning, and I'm the one that started the website and also produced this show. And the reason I'm here today on Red's Corner is not just to support Red, but also to appeal to the viewers out there for help. MAP has been a stalwart for a long time, and Lanny has just worked really hard to achieve what we've achieved over the years. We've come a long way. We've gone from, and I jokingly said this to Red earlier, we've gone from having our patients being beaten up and arrested to just being beaten up. And yeah, that may not sound like a lot, but it is. And we hope to get even further, and it's going to take a lot of help. We're going to need your help, and we need a lot of different jobs, too.
You know Lanny from the show, and he is our fearless leader. And it's just great having a fearless leader. And you've listened to him, and you know how strongly he feels about this and how good a vision he has about marijuana helping people and bringing compassion into the world.
And that's what it's all about, is compassion and helping people and getting this medicine to the people that need it.
And we're now in a lot more markets, and we'd like you to help us. And this isn't talking about a full-time job. It's a few hours a week to set up a meeting in your community, and we'll help you. We'll
right.
help.
Give us a call.
Right. The number will be at the end of the show, and call us.
We'll give you the number right now here. But
there
give us a call. If you're watching this show, but you can't get it on your local cable company, or if you're watching the show and you have a friend that you'd like to be able to see this show that lives in an area where they can't get
Right.
it.
Give them a call and have them call us. And we'll work it out to get this show into their community.
That's right. But it takes your help to do it. We can't do it for you.
That's right. And you could start a meeting. You could start a local MAP chapter. You could go to your library. If you can get 6 people to show up once a month in your library, you'd be amazed at the really nice people that are involved in this, and that these patients, there's so many people that have so much need, and this is so helpful for. And
we need to get the word out to everyone. And this show is all about education. It's about helping the people that are having problems with their community law enforcement, with their civic leaders, and access to the medicine, because we all need safe, affordable access to marijuana. And that's one of the things that this group does, is help through co-ops, through working with dispensaries.
We help people to get together to take care of themselves within the law. And we're not sponsoring any of these, but we're definitely facilitators.
Right, so give us a call. And since we're running out of time here, Red, I want to make sure you all understand. And I want to thank everyone out there that has worked so hard to get this show out. You know, we started off just in the Coachella Valley on one cable company. We're spreading like wildfire all over the country. Within a very short time, we should cover all of Southern California, and it's because of you.
People helping us out, and we could definitely use more help. And you could be helping people in your community by getting involved in MAP. Thanks a lot.
Yes, and thank you for coming to Red's Corner.
Yeah.
That brings us to a close for tonight's show. You've learned a lot. You've learned about the FDA. You met Dr. Todd Mikuriya. You met Irv Rosenfeld, the whacked out guy, right, who's been smoking 10 joints a day for almost 30 years. And you heard from Red's Corner, which is always a fascinating part of the show. But if you'd like to meet all of us in person and a lot of other medical marijuana patients and advocates and so on, you've got to come to our meetings. And we meet 2 times a month. We meet on the first Sunday of every month at 3 p.m. at the Cathedral City Public Library, 33520 Date Palm Drive, the corner of Date Palm and Dave Kelly, right across from the U.S. Post Office, 1 block north of Dinah Shore. That meeting starts at 3 p.m. at the Cathedral City Public Library, first Sunday of the month. And we also meet in the high desert in the city of Joshua Tree at the appropriately named Joshua Tree Community Center. We meet there on the second Wednesday of every month at 7:30 p.m. And the address of the Joshua Tree Community Center is 6171 Sunburst Trail. Both meetings, you'll meet patients, we have speakers, we have a lot of material, printed material that's available for you to take home and to learn about. We also have some books and stuff available. You'll be really glad you came to a meeting, and we'll be really glad you too, because maybe we can inspire you to become one of the activists to get involved. You need to learn about this medicine. Marijuana is good medicine. It's good health. Chronic pain, arthritis, depression, glaucoma, the list goes on and on and on. Come to our meetings and learn about how this medicine can be a benefit to you, your family, and your friends. So that wraps up our show tonight. Thank you very, very much for taking the time to join us tonight on Marijuana, Compassion, and Common Sense. Tell your friends, have a party at your house, and until our next show, this is Lanny Swerdlow saying good night.
Nearly live from Santa Barbara, California.
The Netherlands is going to be providing medicinal marijuana to patients in the Netherlands?
They are already doing that.